Greetings, everyone. This is Antoinette Rootsdawtah, and I'm proud to present to you Ubuntu International's Year in Review. So we started off, this is a presentation that highlights some of the key outcomes that we've done with our work across Africa, North and South America, and Europe. Our focus throughout the year was listening to our communities and responding to their needs and supporting long-term dignity and resilience. So as you can see here, start off with the big bang already at the World Beat Center. This was our 5th year of doing World Beat MLK Day in San Diego at the World Beat Center with Makeda Dread. We invited a wonderful woman named Claudia Brindis of Cona de Poa. I met her in Mexico at an indigenous gathering where I found out that Cona de Poa at the 8th Fire in Hidalgo was where so many indigenous tribes had come together for peace and unity. What I really loved about this organization is that Afro-Mexicanos. This is how we had started to bridge the divide and to start bringing our communities together. Her presentation was just amazing. The people just loved it, bringing Latin communities as well as African American communities together in the spirit of Ubuntu. Then we headed off back over to Uganda, where we started keeping a few Urantia gatherings. One was a conference that had over 100 UB students from around Uganda, from Kampala to Kabale to Fort Portal, Ibanda, and even out of Naki Valley refugee camp. These students came together with just love and hope and aspirations as we continued to study the Urantia book and its teachings. We also had other smaller independent gatherings with some of the local youth groups. As we were teaching them the power of grassroots partnerships, Ubuntu just continued to grow. When we went to Grace Villa, we found 2 new additions to Grace Villa's Girls for Home for Girls. Blessings is one of the little girls, as you can see here. They have now expanded their village home for girls to over 35. There's probably about 37, 38 girls there now, but they just continue growing, as well as the other 200 plus girls that Ruth supports out of Grace Villa. We also met with 4 organizations that were started by the youth in Naki Valley Refugee Center. These young people also they range in a variety of different types of organizations, from schools to arts to music to mental health and permaculture. So this was our first time meeting some of the leaders of the organizations inside of Naki Valley Refugee Settlement. And that was a fun night. Now the education. This is really exciting because this is on the left here. You'll see one of the schools that was recently renovated in Kenya. If you saw the state of the schools before, it was really just rubble. It was just shambles. It looked like a war zone. But now these kids have a brand new school that they are entering into. And on the right is one of the other major hubs in Zimbabwe. This is the 4th school that they have built since the documentary. If you remember, in the documentary, it started with 1 school. Well, since the documentary has been shot, there was a 2nd school and a 3rd school, and now this is the 4th school. And it's amazing. We're really excited. We started to grow our abundance. We built a permaculture Trinity team. Up on the left, you'll see Bilha, who is a permaculture teacher and specialist, and then Ann Okello. They have partnered up and they have started growing, teaching other schools permaculture. It started with 1 school in Bukenya, and now it has already reached over 4 schools. Look at all these children just growing and planting. It's just amazing seeing and then what the kids do, which is really amazing, they go home and they teach their parents, let's start a garden in our own home. Everybody is growing. And when you hear these kids talk about how they can graft a mango tree, how they've grafted 100 avocado trees, 1,000 different other types of trees and species, the knowledge is just amazing. I wish our kids could also learn permaculture here. And on the bottom left, you'll see these are the girls from Grace Villa. They went out and planted 100 orange trees in one afternoon after being inspired by one of our team members, Tahudi Wahinya, who goes down to Uganda pretty frequently to help people set up their permaculture and their gardens. That was an amazing sight to see, so I can't wait to see all the fruit trees that will be sprouting around Uganda. Here we have where we talk about restoring hope. Homes were provided for the homeless, and lives were restored and dignity reclaimed through compassion and community support. This house on the left was the house that Mary, through community support, that we were able to build for Mary, who had lost her husband, and she was found sleeping in someone's shed. And then it came to our attention through our young gentleman named Wilbrod, who wanted to try to help her out. So this was the first house that was built. And then the second house was another family in need. And because if you see behind here, this is where they used to live. And this is where their new house is now that they're finishing up. And on the right, this is just one of 8 houses that we have called the Ubuntu Widows Housing Project. So out of the first time when we went to meet Mary, the other widows also were living in a state of despair in the homes that they're in. So we're trying something unique where in this community, in the Widows Housing Project, these 8 women and their children will come together and work in the spirit of Ubuntu and live in the spirit of Ubuntu and grow in the spirit of Ubuntu. We're excited to see how this program takes off and develops when they move in. Now, healing through the arts, this is my favorite, one of my favorites. As you can see here, we have developed an arts and division program in Ubuntu. We have dancers out of Naki Valley. We have Roots girls out of Grace Villa. We have Kabera. We have dancers in Kabera, 3 different organizations coming together. We have artists. These art that is painted here and sketched are done by children and teens. This one on the left is done by a kid named Moises, who was only 12 years old. This was his second piece of art that he's ever done before. And these others, it's like to try to improve the lives. This is how they're able to express themselves, is through arts, creativity. It gives them hope, it gives them life, and it also brings us a lot of joy when we're able to see the type of beauty that they're able to create. I've got them working now on a Mother Spirit project, so I'm really excited to see, what we develop after that. Of course, honoring our Indigenous wisdom and women. As I mentioned before, it was at the 8th fire where I had met Claudia and Carmen. So Carmen and I got together in Mexico. I saw her again at another event in the Yucatan. This is where I'm presenting Ubuntu to over 100 Indigenous elders from around the world as we're coming together in unity. In the center, we went to Brazil, where there was a tribe called Tupi-Guarani that is trying to hold on to their own customs, the loss of their tribe, the loss of their language. They're also in an area where most of the area of the land was devastated by pollution and devastation to the water and to the lands. And Ubuntu was fortunate enough to be able to witness this amazing culture and also to contribute in helping in their sustainability. I learned a lot. I learned that you can kind of clean up water by planting moringa trees. So we're trying to support that effort. And then here, Carmen and I hosted an event in Hidalgo, and with 50 Mexican children from a neighboring city, that it was their first time coming out as we did a tree planting, music celebration, our first Ubuntu festival held in Mexico, the Cone de Poa. Thank you, Carmen. We also had a lot of Ubuntu celebrations around, one in Brazil where we actually introduced the Ubuntu song to a crowd on our Ubuntu tour. We're doing a tour and just bringing this message of what Ubuntu means to all of us and teaching the people in Brazil. We also had a festival in Kabale, in Uganda, and also one in Nairobi. It's centered around arts, music, culture, food. We talked about sustainability. We talked about Ubuntu in action. We talked about wellness. We talked about permaculture. It was just very exciting. And when we took these festivals out of Africa and also Mexico, We also held one in San Francisco at Golden Gate Park, which we will be doing again this year, and then also in Minnesota. That was amazing in Mankato, where different tribes and different communities all came together to understand that Ubuntu in action is that we are all one. I am because we are. Women Rising Together. This is another favorite program that we have started together. It's called the Women's Empowerment. These women have come together that in 5 different countries we have started a women's empowerment program that we're implementing across that with different things from trauma healing to permaculture to nutrition to Ubuntu values to spirituality to all these different things that we would like to be able to see as far as what women's empowerment looks like. We've noticed that with a lot of different organizations, they might focus on one thing or another, but we're trying to incorporate all of the best ideas into one and for each one of the organizations to support each other. It's amazing when we get on our weekly Zoom calls and the women are like, okay, I've got a specialty in trauma healing or sexual abuse, while another one has a specialty in reusable pad training and also talking to children or mentoring or support. So, and this picture here is when we did one of our events. We did several already, but this one was in a village of about 100 women that came together in Kitugwenda. And as you can see, this woman in the center is praying. After our friend Brenda Alina, she was insinuating that women have also to know their divine right and who they are about, who they are about their divinity on this planet and what they have to offer to the rest of this world. I can't wait to see what they're able to do after they've had this first meeting, and there'll be many more. Strengthening our global partnerships. So last year was amazing because we had Ubuntu International has become an official member of URI, one of the cooperation circles. This was very amazing because now we're even expanding even more because the URI has over 1,000 cooperation circles, many of them within Africa, as we are able to expand our outreach and to be able to support more organizations while they also support us with more learning and education and just the family support that you would just love when you're working together for the good of the whole, of everything. And then also here, this is where Carmen and I, and then there's Rodrigo from Collective Healing, Onisco's Collective Healing. It was great partnering up with them as well. But we signed a method of understanding, an agreement about how we want to bring Ubuntu to Mexico, how we want to instill it into the values and the lives of the people across the country and also across the 69 indigenous tribes. We won 2 more awards. I think they need to change the number. We already achieved 27, but I believe these 2 kind of take us up to 29. Pato's going to have to sit there and give us a full confirmation. But here you see me with Dr. Natalie Besnial. She is one of the hosts for the Cannes Festival, the USA for Africa in Cannes. She's also a doctor, and it's just amazing that these African films are just kind of getting a global outreach. They love this short film, Baobab Tree Story, and they want us back next year for the full screening of the documentary, The Spirit of Ubuntu. And then we were also picked up by My Hero International, where our music video was submitted, but also one of our young brothers, Will Broad, who was working on the Widows Housing Project, he submitted his film and he won. So that was really amazing because that was his very first film that he had created, and it was on the topic of Ubuntu International was his hero and the work that he was doing in support of the widows. So that was very good. Here you can see some of the girls that Grace Villa supports. I mean, when I tell you that these are the brightest and the best girls in the whole country of Uganda, I am not lying. As you can see, the smiles on their face, they are very amazing, and this is great stuff. All right, planting for the future. This is where we've got peace trees were planted as living symbols of unity. We did one in Netherlands with a Let Love peace tree, with Chantil Spirit and her organization, we kind of prophesized this. We kind of came up with this, how we were going to be working together. And I was like, we're thinking along the lines of being in the cosmic mind. Yes, we want to plant trees everywhere that we go. So it started in Mexico, where we planted the 50 trees. And then we continued in Netherlands, and then we planted trees while we were in Uganda before and after, and we also continued planting trees while we were also in Minnesota. So I think I need to see what's going on with my count of the trees being planted as we continue working with Let Love Peace Tree, to plant more trees in the spirit of Ubuntu to make this a greener world. So please join us. I am because we are. This is all sponsored on partnership with Edentia Inc., Compassionate Las Vegas, and Stand Up for Justice. And how you can stay connected. So Ubuntu International, I am because we are. You can scan the QR code. I'm going to be updating it pretty frequently. We have the website, which is spiritofubuntu.us, ubuntunow1@gmail.com. You could follow us and get a subscription to our Substack at Ubuntu. It is a free subscription, but if you upgrade to paid, just know that your paid subscription goes directly, 100% goes into the projects that we support with Ubuntu. And we thank you so much. And this is how we have went from Stand Up for Justice here into internationally, into building beloved community around the world. Thank you. And one love. Peace.